Language only on Hannity and Colmes.
A couple of publicized immigration crackdowns across the country. One raid in Missouri netted dozens of suspected illegals working at the state capitol. In Massachusetts, hundreds of illegals found in New Bedford making products for, among others, the U.S. military. Joining us is former federal prosecutor and immigration attorney Michael Wilds. Michael, you bring in an interesting perspective to this because besides being an immigration attorney, you're also the mayor of Englewood, New Jersey. Would you be surprised if it turns out that somewhere in the hierarchy of Englewood you've got illegal immigrants working there?
It's ironic, John, that this happens in the very government that has shifted the responsibility to police immigration to employers. At first blush, it shows moxie and an initiative that the government would enforce this. The problem that you have ultimately, and in my opinion, is that this is effectively putting a Band-Aid on cancer. The government has had these laws on the books since 1986. Every employer, including you, John, when you started at Fox, and I at the law firm that I work, has to fill out a compliance document. And the question is, are they doing this for show? Since the Department of Homeland Security took over, the effort has been toward border states and security-minded issues rather than the everyday crackdown on enforcement. And I give a lot of credibility to the governors and to the different states across our nation that are focusing on immigration enforcement because the silence from Washington on this issue is deafening.
Well, you say it's putting a Band-Aid on cancer, but 5 people arrested, at least in the Massachusetts case, were some of the managers, and apparently a guy or a woman maybe who was helping these people come up with illegal documents, fake identification. That's got to send a message.
Absolutely. It sends a very strong message, but the government should have been doing this, is my point, since 1986. In 1986, the government basically took uniforms off of immigration agents, sent them into the factories for a few years, and taught them to teach employers how to deal with immigration issues. Now they've turned their back toward other priorities, and while this is the beginning of enforcement, the problem is it's not consistent. And these raids represent, I think, the greatest challenges, the successes, and the struggles that the immigration authorities have to deal with this issue. That is, to make sure that we help bolster our economy, but at the same time we are a government of laws and we don't allow people to bootstrap themselves onto safe legal ground who violated those laws.
Well, here you have, in the Massachusetts case, workers, illegal workers making products for the U.S. military. Now, nobody, says that these reflective vests and boots and that kind of thing were high security items. But how do you know? If you don't know who's making some of these products, how do you when you're building, jet attack aircraft and smart bombs and things like that, how do you know that the people making those products are legitimate?
I agree with your concern. The bottom line is that there's not only security issues with the people that are engaged in sensitive equipment, but there's also the, if you would, the lens being pulled back on the whole landscape. How do we know who is legal in the United States? And if the buck stops now with employers, the government has to make sure that they wholesale educate and have a reform so that employers will verify documents as it goes along. Right now, there's a good faith exception. Employers can get away literally with looking at somebody's papers, whether they be phony or not. They're not forensics experts. Colorado is leading the initiative for the state. In the state of New Jersey, where I reside, there's now an initiative to look at immigration reform in different communities to see